here comes the West Indies. And when you're facing the generals, nearly every ball is a funeral. And when we battle, brother, go and put your men on the boundary line. And if you give we a lick up, that is merely a hiccup. Look, you win the little battle, you lose the war. It's the same result every time. Everybody sing, here comes the West Indies. Here comes the West Indies. Them rude boys gonna get you by degrees. Here comes the West Indies. I'll tell you now, here comes the West Indies. Here comes the West Indies. Them bad boys gonna bring you to your knees. Here comes the West Indies. Special request to the Trinity posse. And what about the Guyana posse? And what about the Jamaica posse?
This 20th century will go down in history as a great victory for black men like me. For they said that white men were far greater, my friend, than black descendants in intelligence. Our minds they did drill, with nonsense we were filled, but we have now eclipsed dear Winston Churchill. The greatest men you see of this 20th century are all black men with talent and ability. Name them for me.
Gary Sobers, Pele and Muhammad Ali.
This 20th century showed a black artistry to sports the black's length, their physical strength. Boxing and football, athletics, basketball, we showed that whitey cannot excel we. In soccer, whitey lose, they have to shine these shoes, for we overshadowed their Stanley Matthews. For their master at play is the Black Pearl Pele. Football's wizard with quick feet and the high speed. So sing with me.
Gary Sobers, Pele and Muhammad Ali.
This is Caribbean time.
Long time in cricket, they gave us an exit. Black men were not named to their Hall of Fame. Cricket's all-rounder, for them was Keith Miller, Hutton Jim Laker, or Alec Betson. Today they must mention Sobers the West Indian, who has by far surpassed their Donald Bradman. No more records remain for him to break again. This lad Sobers is chairman in their Hall of Fame. Tell them for me,
Gary Sobers, Pele and Muhammad Ali.
Rumba. Boxers come and go, there'll be some tomorrow. The king will still be Muhammad Ali. Great is his punching, his ring craft and dancing, speed in his two hands to beat any man. His title they did take, he was stripped by the state, but forced them to respect his black Muslim faith. He spent cash by the millions to free many black sons from whitey's grip and capitalist oppression. None can beat them three.
Gary Sobers, Pele and Muhammad Ali.
Gary Subas, when you call his name.
You got to go to. You either play BCL cricket, but you know me, that he went to the Barbados Cricket Association and asked them if a boy from the Police Boys Club, because I was a member of the Police Boys Club, and that's where it all used to happen, but I never used to go there.
And that was still in Weymouth where it is now?
Yeah. And you know, if he can play for police, and they said yes. They knew it was me. And it was because of him and Dennis Atkinson, who used to allow me to bowl at everything, that I was able to move on. And that is how my career started.
Well, fascinating stuff.
And then, I'm not finished, then I had this match. I had this match, the country versus the city. Police was good to me. Captain Farmer was a great man. You know, I was in England when he was dying. And he called me to his bedside. And he said, I'm dying. I wish you good luck. You know, I've never forgotten that.
Of course.
He was, and it's because of him and Dennis that I was able to live and to raise myself to what I have become. A player who plays for his country, whether it's West Indies, whether it's police, whether it's Spartan or whoever, and who give his all. You know, people have looked at me and watched me play. You know, I've never made a run for me in my cricket career. Never made a run for me. I've always for my country. And I've always said that to people that I see go and play cricket and they just want to bat, and don't care about the country and the people who put them there. I think that my game improved and I was blessed by God for the way I thought about the game. The country came first. Whoever I played for came first, and the people, and then I came behind them. And I think that is why my game was able to progress the way it did, because I never think of me.
So Gary, in your time playing with the West Indies, you would have had so many tremendous opponents. You would have bowled at some of the best batsmen that will compare to you, and you would have faced some of the best bowlers that would also compare to yourself. When you look back at your illustrious career, who were some of the best batsmen and the best bowlers that you would have played against, that you would have found to be difficult to dislodge, and also found, you know, easy on the eye as well to watch?
Well, when I first started, I was so pleased to be in the team. I never really studied who was great and who wasn't great. I was there, and I was gonna do my best. And I came up one of the greatest players probably in the world in those days, and probably would be one of the greatest up to today. Sir Leonard Hutton.
Right.
That was my first game against him. And he made 200 and something in Jamaica, not out. And I was able to bowl against him at the age of 15, 16. And I think that was a great insight. Trevor Bailey and all of those. And the day of the test match, I sit there and I watch. I watch Alan Ray and Jeffrey Stormare open the innings. I batted at number 9. I wouldn't go through the whole thing, and I went in very late in it. And Freddie Truman was playing too, who I've always admired. Freddie Truman as a bowler, Trevor Bailey, Peter May, Colin Cowdrey, Ted Dexter, who to me was one of the English best players, Ted Dexter. And you know, and I went out, number 9, got a few runs, got 10 or 20 or something, so not out. Went back in, but bowling to, when I was brought on to bowl, I thought, ooh, Hutton, this great player, Dennis Compton, he was there too. You know, and I think in that match, I bowled something like 40 overs, and I got 3 wickets for 72 runs. Look in the records, I couldn't believe it. And Hatton scored 202 not out.
Yes.
He batted right through the innings. And you know, it was a learning process to watch him, the way he played, and Compton and those players. So I had a learning progress as a youngster coming up. I didn't just play the game, I watched and I learned. And the following year, I'll go into that. After batting at number 9, Australia came to the West Indies. I missed the first test. Played the second test in Trinidad and the third test in Barbados. When Jeffrey Stallmer twisted his ankle on the ball he tried to stop. But people thought it was different. They thought that he didn't want to play against Lindwall and Miller. And here am I sitting down in the dressing room as happy as a lark. And the captain came in to me and says, Sobers, you're opening the innings. Oh, God. Opening the innings. I batted at number 9. In my first test match, this is my second test match, and I'm opening the innings. So here am I sitting down in there, and one thing is going through my mind. As Everton and those always said, I can get the little stem into the little hole with the pads. Because in those days, you couldn't stick the pad on. You had a buckle where you had to pull it up, and I was trying to get it in for about 10 minutes and couldn't get it in.
You were scared.
You know what it's like at 17 or 16 years of age, going out to play against Miller and Lindwall? I mean, those are names that I heard. And I remember Lindwall said what kept him into cricket longer than he should have is Jeffrey Stallmer. Because in Australia, when he was bowling to him, the story went like this. I'll finish my story. The story went like this.
You take your time.
As he walking back to bowl, Lindsay Hassett, who was feeling that mid-off, said to him, hey, Ray, you hit Jeffrey. And he looked round and saw Jeffrey lying in front of the stumps. And he said to Lindsay, I either slip or I fall. Because when I hit them, they fall behind. They don't fall in front. So those are the kind of fellas I had to go and play. And I'd gone out there, and I'm saying to myself, son, you are no opening batsman. When you go up there, you see red. Just throw the bat at it and see what happens. I got in, I took guard, and I looked around, and it's only Keith Miller. I'm frightened. I said, should I look back? I took a little glance on the offside, and there's 4 slips and a gully. I said, boy, you better not look this way. Anyhow, I took a look over my right shoulder, and there's 4-leg slips. Not a man in front. So I said to myself, I said, whenever I see red, I throw in this bat at it. And he came up, and I remember the first ball went up there, and just before it might put down. In that first over, I think I got 4 4s. Then one of the leg slips came out and went into
Cover.
Like short cover. Used to call that field the umbrella. Mm-hmm. And I managed to get a run, and I gone down to the other end, and Lindwall is there. And he looked at me and he says, son, he came and put his hand on my shoulders. He said, son, you are doing very well up there. You don't stay down here. You go back up there. But, you know, you could imagine you going as a youngster and the first ball you get, and you don't see anybody in front of you. And you're frightened to look over your shoulders. Anyhow, I went on. I got a few runs. And I remember that Ian Johnson came on. And I was going so well that I thought I can have a go at him too. But the lack of experience, he bowled me and took it back a bit, top edge. I got 40-odd runs, and they thought it was the best 40 runs they ever saw me made. But you could imagine Miller, Lindwall, it wasn't easy.
It brings me to a question that I want to ask you. You said there's no one in front. You had slips, you had guys in the leg slip. Was there any sledging in those days? Did they used to get under your skin like what they do now and tell you things?
Well, I don't remember those fellas. But the teams after Miller and the Ling Walls, the Simpsons and that kind of team.
Yeah.
Oh, they used to speak to you.
What? Tell me some of the things that they used to say.
Well, they never sledged me.
Right.
They never sledged me because I went into Australia and I had a very good season there. And every time they went to sledge me, the captain said, look, don't say anything to him. He's not going to say anything to you, but we are going to feel it. So don't say anything to him. Because I never used to pay any attention to them.
Right.
You know, but it was there. And you can't blame them because they had players that if they sledged, Rohan was one of those. And in Trinidad, when Barbados should have won, when the West Indies should have won that test, Ian Chappell himself talked about it. He knew it. He went to leg slip, close. And he said to him, oh, you can't bat like Sobey. No, telling somebody else. He can't bat like Sobey. He's not as good as Sobey. Knowing. And we had that test match to win. Yeah. And all of a sudden, Rohan slugged it. It went up in the air and got up at about 70.
Wow.
And we lost that test match. But they knew who to sledge.
Okay. So you never got ready? You were never really
sledged? I never got sledged. No. Because when they sledged me, I used to make the bat talk for me. I never used to say anything to them. So they never used to sledge me. But there were sledgers. But Keith Miller, I remember in the hotel in Trinidad, Collie and I rooming together. And every night at about 10:30, Ray Lindwall and Keith Miller used to knock on our door and open the door. We open the door, they come and sit down and talk for an hour. Wow. You know? And they will talk to you like things like, you know, you boys are young, you're good players. You know, you would go there today and you'd make 150 and everybody would like you. And tomorrow you make not, or nobody don't want, and that kind of thing. You know, and they told Collie, he says, Collie just got 100 in each innings, I think, against them in Jamaica. And he said to him, you know, you just made 100 or what it was against us. And if you fail in this test, you know, that's going to be different. Collie made a pair. They got it. He used to talk to us every night. And he said, you know, you'll be a hero now. But if you go there tomorrow and made a that, you will see what happened. And he did. Oh, man. You know, but that's what they were like. Keith and Ray, they were good people. They didn't make to frighten you. They used to come and sit down and drink. They walk in there with a rum glass and sit down for an hour and a half and talk to Collie and I and tell us about the game.
Now, let's fast forward to that very special day that many people around the world actually really heard about Sir Gary Sobers, 365. Tell me about that test match, that test innings, and the moment that you broke the world record. What was that like for you?
Oh, boy. You know, I have never really thought about it. As I always said, I've always been a team player. And I've always tried to find out what the team needs and look at the scores and try and bat for the team. And also the people who pay to come through the turnstiles. I think that this also should be entertained. They're the ones who keep the game going. And that was my motivation, the team. And I went to Jamaica and I didn't do too well. And in Barbados, I got a few runs. And there was a man called Roy Lawrence.
Roy Lawrence, yeah. Great Roy Lawrence.
And I remember, I had some pretty good innings. And Roy Lawrence used to always say, you know, that youngster, when he gets 100, nobody knows where he's going to go. They could go anywhere. And I remember hearing that and saying that. And in Jamaica, on that occasion, it was my first test 100. You know, and I really didn't expect anything like that. I was happy to get my 100, and I just went on batting forward, and we were talking about records, and records had never crossed my mind because I was always a team man. Records is for people who are selfish. Records, and we had a big score at lunch. And going back out, And all Corwood is thinking about is the record that we were going to break. We were going to break some record. And he was batting so comfortable because he got 248, if I remember,
248.
right? And he pushed the ball into the covers and called me for a quick single. He called, I ran. And he got run out. Unluckily, the fielder struck the wicket directly, and he was out. I went on batting. I was happy to get my 100. Went on batting. And not thinking about any world record at all. And then when I got my double 100, I am looking now and thinking now, when is the captain going to declare? Because we got about 400 and something, and I'm looking for a declaration. Well, I don't see any declaration because when another wicket fell, Clyde Walcott came in. And I said, well, what's happening? And he came to me and he said to me, son, you only need another 90 runs. Put your head down and you can get that. I said, I thought they're going to declare. He said, you just bat. And I remember when I got to 90 odd, 390 odd, he came down again. He says, you only need, I think it was 20 more runs. Put your head down, son. So I decided, well, I put my head down. And I remember Hanif Mohammed, who was bowling right hand, and he wasn't really a bowler. And when I got into the 360 something, 362, I think it was, he came to me and he says, you don't mind if I bowl with my left hand? I said, by all means, no, please do. So he ran up and bowled this. I remember pushing it into the covers. It was 364. I pushed it into the covers, and before he could look round, Clyde Walcott was down on me, so I had to take off. But I was never, ever interested in the 365. You know, and after that, we had to declare because the ground was filled with people just running all over. And they ran on the wicket. And Hafiz Kardar, after all the people had disappeared, looked at the wicket, and there was one little piece about that big out of the wicket. And they decided then to make the declaration. And Hafiz Kardar looked at it and he says, no, we won't be batting this evening on that wicket until you put that prepared again. You know, and they wish they didn't do that, you know, but I was only interested in the West Indies team. You know that? 365 was my first Test 100. What a way to start.
and finish even better. Yeah, that picture you had with Muhammad Ali, where was that taken? Tell me about how that
taken in the dressing room at Lord's. Yeah, because he was there to fight with Henry Cooper. Mm-hmm. And you know, a great man. He just sit down there, man, as though he'd belong in there. And he laughed and joked with all the fellas. You know, and he was one of my favorite boxers. You know, because he wasn't the kind of fight, he was a boxer. You know, and we chat.
Outside of cricket, is he the greatest sportsman that you perhaps will compare with?
Well, it's very difficult. I can say that because sportsmen come from more than one sport. And I didn't really know the criteria of all the other sports that were played. But he was silly. Although I didn't think that he was the greatest boxer. I mean, he was the greatest heavyweight champion. I think he was the greatest boxer. But I think that people like Holmes and all these other fellas were great boxers because they used to knock you down.
Yeah. Muhammad
Ali used to depend on beating you on points. And I always look at the one who can put you down. You know that is nobody's given anything because sometimes you could fight and the other fella can beat you, but you don't knock him out. You don't get the championship. He gets it. But that doesn't mean that he really beat you. But when you put them down. And I always liked Holmes and those fellas because they used to put you out. As a boxer, there was nothing better than Muhammad Ali as a boxer, you know. But I think there were better champions.
Now, you know, a lot of people know about your days of playing county cricket in England, but you had a very strong Australian connection. Your good friend was Sir Richie Beno, who passed away. But Don Bradman Do you ever have perhaps any knowledge of Don Bradman, any interaction with him when he was alive?
For all my fellow seniors, forget pulling your pants to your chest. Meet Airflexion. Bring comfort down to earth without the grandpa look.
Yes. When I first went out to Australia, because I went there before I went back, because of the tour to Australia that I had the opportunity to go back to play for South Australia. And I had a lot of dealings to do with the Don after that too, you know, because he was the one that asked him to bring me back to South Australia.
Really?
To play for South Australia.
Okay.
He was the one that instigated that, you know, because when I went back there, we used to sit nearly every night and talk about cricket and all of that, you know. And when I was playing for them, I'll be in the dressing room, and he will come. If South Australia was in trouble, he would walk into the dressing room, and he'd say, where he is, where he is. Because I never used to watch. I used to go and sleep on the masseur table. And the boys would say, oh, he's on the masseur table sleeping. And he'll come up there and he'll say, South Australia is in trouble, son. You have to get me 100. Every time he did that, I would have got him 100. And he'll come back and says, I knew that you wouldn't disappoint me, you know? And over, he would come and do that all the time. As soon as South Australia got into trouble, he would come and search me out. And we would sit down and talk. And you know, he would bring questions to me from watching cricket, who I thought was the greatest bowler and all of that. And he knew them all. He had them all there. And I think he brought up Brian Statham. I hope they don't hear me say this. And Brian Statham was a hell of a good bowler. And he asked me, you know, I don't know why he picked this particular man, but I knew there was a reason. And he says, what do you thought of Brian Statham? I said, oh, a great bowler, but I think he chapped. He said, amazing, you should think that. he used to.
Statham used to.
If you watch his action, he used to get in there and get over there. By the time you get there, he couldn't straighten that out.
Wow.
And he would never show me the picture. He had all of them at home. And he just looked at me and said, amazing, you should say that. You know, but we got on very, very well.
So Gary, Brian Lara is a cricketer that broke a record eventually. And he's one that you know very well from playing cricket, came here to play in the Sir Gary Sobers competition. What was your relationship with him when he first started, leading into the first year when he broke the record of
Well, I didn't know a lot about him, but through the Sir Gary Sobers International Schoolboys competition, which started it's been going out, this year would be about 32 years that it's been going. Yeah. And at the very first tournament, we had 11 teams. We had, I think, 3 from Trinidad, 4 from Barbados, and we had from Canada and the United States. We had 11 teams in all. And I remember I was home sitting down, because we played at Barclays Park,
right.
And I was Highgate Gardens. I was there sitting down. And Charlie Davis, who went wherever Brian went, he was only 13, 14. He used to go with him. Send someone for me to come and see this youngster. And this chap came and knocked on my door, and I walked up to him. And I got there, and there was Brian, and brought him over. Brian, this is Sir Gary talking. You Sir Sobers? You Sir Sobers? I said yes. I stood up there, talked to him, and I stood up there. He went into bat. I looked at him. And you believe me, they couldn't get him out. But he couldn't get the ball off the square. He couldn't get him out at all. And I looked and watched him. And the following year he came back. He got stronger. And I went to watch him. You could see that he was going to be a great, great, great player. He played those fellas, then he was about 14, 15. And he just played the older players like nothing. Just made them look like nothing. But he had one mistake. One thing in his armory. And everybody was this and that. And he came to me shoot Joey Carew, go and let Gary look at you. And it's a simple thing. I said, Brian, what you are doing, you are going too far over the off stump. So you bring in the ball that is wide of you into play. And the wider you go, and the wider the ball, the more the ball is going to move. Just cover your off stump. And you could cut those balls. And from that day, he never looked back.
Wow.
And Jackie would tell you, he used to call me wherever he went and ask me, you've been watching me? You've been watching me? You've been watching me? I said, yes. And every time he came home, nobody touched him. He used to send for me to come Jamaica where he is to look at him. You know, and this is the problem with our people. You know, they think that brains and education is play cricket, but it don't really play cricket. It's the knowledge of the game that plays it. And the people who know the strategy and thing of the game that helps people. And he never looked back from there. You know, and I remember going to Australia playing a test against Gleason.
Yeah.
Johnny Gleason. I got into that. I was, in those days, not a good picker of googly bowlers. And Gleason had this thing both ways. You don't know, because he's not there. And I said to myself, I said, boy, coach is on a boy, can't tell you. If he's on the wicket, sweep him. Sweep, because if he's going so, you can catch him. And if he's going so, you can catch him. But as soon as you start to play like you know what you're doing, that's where you're going to get out. And when Brian came to me, I told Brian the same thing. I said, when you play against Gleason and those fellas, don't try to pick them, it can hurt your head. If he's up to you, sweep him. If he's short, just keep your back in a position that you could get it to the ball.
Right.
You know, and I made 100 and something against him in that, and then went to Queensland and made another 100 and something against him. And after the day, he didn't know that I wasn't interested in picking him. It's knowing the game and knowing what you can do. And Brian went to Sri Lanka. I made a hell of a lot of runs against
Over
one of the best
600 runs.
against one of the best leg spinners. Because every time he got there, Brian swept. You know, and this is the whole thing about the game. You don't have to be, what they say, not a Solomon or somebody so to know what you're doing in cricket. It's just the knowledge of the game that you play and you study it and know it, you know. And that's what happened with us. We feel that we ain't got an education, so we can't talk to people. We ain't know nothing about cricket.
I must ask you, in this era that we're in now, would you like to have a greater role in helping our West Indies cricketers? And if you were to have that role, what kind of role would you like?
Well, I wouldn't mind having a role if I'm being left alone and given the job to do and not think. Right. Because I think that we've got a lot of great promising players on the scene. And some of these educated people are going to surely destroy them. I'm going to tell you that. Because cricket is a simple game. You don't need no Solomon to tell you how to go there and back. You know, and you can see things. If you play it, you can see it. You know what you're talking about. Yeah. But some people believe that you haven't got that kind of education. I haven't got the one to write books and all that and tell them about it. I know about that. Yeah. I know about this game, you know, and I know when a fella is doing wrong or where the mistakes are, you know, but I don't really want a job. I would help if somebody asked me, but I don't really want a job because I'm not educated enough.
Oh, come on.
If you sit on the toilet, bear down, and barely anything comes out. You don't have constipation, you have poop paralysis. And the difference between the two is everything. It's why fiber, laxative.
I was interested to see yesterday all the sixes that were hit. And I want to know, the ball's the same weight it was in...
Good evening and welcome to West Indies Cricket 101 on a Sunday afternoon. My co-hosts are here, Basil Butcher Jr., Royalty, Dr. Vincent Adams, Royalty, not by virtue of family, but because he was there. And as Gary said, I know but down. I want to say a couple of things before I throw it over to my co-panelists. I've been thinking a lot since Sir Gary died, using the methodology of C.L.R. James and others to try to understand. Because you see, Gary Sobers did everything on a cricket field. He batted, he bowled left arm fast, left arm cutters, Chinaman, front of the hand, back of the hand. He did what, and captain and fielded. He did everything. And I'm thinking about players today who find it difficult to play 3 formats. And they say, you have to manage your body. No, so what is this doing all of these things? And I was listening to Mikey Holden, and he said Sobers could make the West Indies team. I heard it from Derek Murray also. He could make the West Indies team doing any of those things. He could make the West Indies team as a batsman, could make it as a fast bowler, as a spin bowler. And he never complained about his body and all those things that these present-day players. And so I am thinking there must be something, that genius, that drove Sobers to do what he did. And C.L.R. James's theory was that Sobers came at a particular time, independence. He came from a particular place, these complex islands in the Caribbean, small, but central to what we in academia call modernization. But more than that, James said, Sobers had the capacity to absorb the energy. And so time, place, and person produced a Sobers. And I've come to accept that thesis. I've come to also been thinking, see, Sobers is representing islands. The only cricket team in the world that's representing several quote-unquote countries. And so he goes out there, he's Barbadian, but he's also West Indian. And so the genius that God blessed him with is a genius that has this group of islands mixed into it. And so his capacity to do anything and everything has to do with what Ralph Gonzalez called the islandness, but which I'm taking to another level and to say these different islands, it's the same passion, but coming at it from a different standpoint, complexity, and singularity in diversity. That there's something, Sobers could do that because he came from the Caribbean. I remember when Bernard Julian came on the scene, people were saying, that's the next Sobers. Could bat, could bowl left-arm seamers, and he used to bowl spin. A lot of people forgot that. And so Sobers set a standard of the complexity of the islands and embodying the islands, because in a sense, Sobers became the Prime Minister of the Caribbean. With the fall of the Federation in '62, the West Indies captain basically became the Prime Minister. And so beyond, you listen to Sobers and he says, I am not thinking about records, yet he becomes a record breaker. This says there are forces operating beyond the individual. Very important. Secondly, or thirdly, if you listen to Sobers, and I was thinking about something to play tonight, something, and I stumbled upon that interview a couple of nights ago. And the Barbadian, he was speaking there at the Barbados Museum of Culture, and they had only uploaded that video after he died. So it was only up on YouTube a couple of days, and I found it and I said, ha. After listening to it, I said, this is what I'm going to play. If you talk to people who know Sobers well, they say he never talked about himself. He seldom talked about himself. And you could see glimpses of that in the interview. But he talked more in that interview about himself than I've ever heard. And you heard towards the end a critique there of Caribbean society class. That here was the genius. He used education to mean class. Here is the genius of them all. In a sense, rebuking is society about a kind of class hierarchy that Sobers would have met when he came in. He had to join the army in order to play cricket because he couldn't get into a lot of the cricket clubs there in Barbados because they were based on class. And you heard that stinging critique about the class nature of Guyanese society, of Caribbean society, coming from one who is great. In a sense, telling us that I became great in spite of this. In spite of this, the class nature of this society. And the second thing that jump out there, which I'm going to start with you guys, I never made a run for myself. For me, that simple statement must go down as part of the Caribbean sociology of our time. I never made a run for myself. For the first time in a long time, today when the West Indies lost that match, I wasn't angry. Because I saw some emotions from those boys, which I don't normally see in West Indies cricket. After the collision between Greaves and young Hakeem, they were all down. I didn't get to see where they were crying, but I'm sure they were crying. And at the end of the game, they huddled together because the emotions were too much. And I think that when you come from where we come from, your emotions is a big part of your game. That your skill is undoubted. But as C.L.R. James said, do you have the capacity to absorb? I saw little children, almost in tears there this afternoon. Almost in tears. First of all, I'm asking myself, do they understand the game? And I'm looking at, and they do understand the game. Do they understand the emotions that go with winning and losing? They do. You can see it. Maybe it took the death of Gary Sobers to bring some emotions out in those guys. I know some of them, I admire Alzari Joseph because he carries the Caribbean emotion on his shoulders. And he goes, what they call, goes off sometimes. But if you, on a slave plantation, and you're trying to get out, you're not trying just to free your individual self. You're trying to free all the enslaved. You're trying to overthrow the slavery. And that is why we could play with more emotions, and we should play with more emotions than Australia. But Australia do play with emotions, but than England or New Zealand or whoever, and make no apologies for it. That's my opening. That's my opening statement tonight on the passing of Sir Gary Sobers. One of my regrets in life is that I never, like the two of you, met him in person to speak to. I once was at Kensington Oval, and I was there with a television team from the United States, and so we got to sit with the journalists, and Sobers was way over where he used to sit down, and I couldn't make it across there to go to meet him. We are West Indians. Basil, I never made a run for myself. Put that in perspective from your standpoint, and what that tells us about Sir Gary Sobers.
Good evening, Dr. Hines. Good evening, Vincent. Good evening to your viewers. That reminds me of something my father said to me when they arrived in England in 1963. And Frank Worrell said to the team, we have two superstars on this team, myself and Valentine. And when we go out, because in those days, unless you did the business in England, you were not a superstar. And he said, when we go out to play, we're not just playing for our team. We're playing for the people back home in the Caribbean and all the black people in the UK. If we win, those black people in the UK can go into work with their chest puffed up. If we lose, those people could lose their jobs. So there was an understanding that was put out to the players. You were playing for something more than just yourself when you walked onto the cricket field to represent the West Indies. And that was because of the context, as you obviously know. These were little island nation states, some coming into becoming independent, some still colonies at the time, and they were going up against the quote-unquote colonial master. So there was a lot of context in that statement by Frank Worrell, and that is what, when I saw this video before the show, when I heard Sir Gary say that was what came to my mind immediately, what my dad had said to me many years ago.
We're getting some feedback from you there, Basil, I think, or somebody.
I think I'm in my hotel room, and there's some people making noise outside my hotel room.
You're still in Barbados. You're still in Barbados.
What's that?
You're still in Barbados.
Yes, I'm in Barbados. I was at the game today.
Okay. All right.
I saw everything close up. That catch was right in front of us where we were sitting.
Dr. Adams, the critique, because I think it was an affirmation. I never made a run for myself. I played for my country. It was both an affirmation, but I think it was a critique of contemporary Caribbean cricket. Talk to me.
It was that. By the way, good evening, all to all of our wonderful listeners, and to you, Dr. Hines and Basil. Look, I wish that for the youngsters that are coming up, I wish this video could be played to them in all the academies, and everything could be played for them to see. These are the kinds of things that I go back to my days coming up as a little kid. These are the kinds of things when you play in the dressing room. When I was a 12th man in Case Cup, and you're in the dressing room, you sit down with the Basil Butchers and the Rohans and them who play in Case Cup. These are the kinds of stories that you hear that never leaves you, and you put into practice. He said so much, and the most important thing he said there, Dr. Hines and Basil, is that he listened. He listened, even though he was a star. He listened to Sir Donald Bradman. You know, he would sit down and talk cricket, and you know, and even this whole thing about it, to me, I like to use the word pride. You got to start like everything else in terms of the unselfishness, and you play for where you belong or for a country, and it starts from when you're young. Again, going back in my days, when I played in Linden, we had a school competition. All of the 4 schools that were in Linden, you played in a competition, and at the end of that competition, they picked the Upper Demerara team. But when you played for your schools, I remember when you played for your schools, when you play in the finals, all the 2 schools used to get a holiday. All the students come, and I remember, you know, twice I won the game for Christian Borg, one time against Mackenzie School and another time against St. Aidan's. And I got lifted off the field, guess by who? By the young ladies. But you play for something, and then when you finish, they pick that Upper Demerara team. Then the East Bank group does the same thing. They pick an East Bank combined team. Then we play in a match. Then they pick that combined Upper Demerara East Bank. And the rest of the country they do the same. The East Coast, the quarantine, that's where Kali Charan came from. He was captain of that group. I was captain of the Upper Demerara East Bank combined group. You had a Georgetown group. But my point is, when you in those days, you weren't thinking not about money or anything. You're thinking about when you win for your school, or when you win for your region, or whatever it is. And even when you go beyond that, even with Basil Father, and you heard it came out there from him. In those days, they had a job. Playing cricket was a side job. Matter of fact, you had to get permission from your job to play. You played because, you know, the fame. And of course, when you play for your country, it's that pride, and everybody wants to be around you, etc. Nowadays, it's different, Dr. Hines. Nowadays, everybody goes out there. Who makes the hundreds and who gets the wickets? They're the ones who are going to get the big IPL contracts. Or people are putting themselves. Why you think people are playing no Test cricket and everything? Because, you know, we always hear the reason why a lot of them don't play Test cricket. First of all, they say, why should I go there for 5 days and I could get the same amount? I ain't getting the same amount. I could make much more playing for three hours. But on top of that, you know what a lot of them say? When you're there for 5 days, you're more susceptible to injury. And when you get injured, you're not gonna get picking no IPL or CPL or anything. So that's where it's coming from. It's this whole pride, and we need, and even Clive and everybody, you know, lots of people who know about cricket always say we need to start going back to school cricket. That's where it starts. We need to go back to, and the other thing, Dr. Hines, in my days, you never used to take people from, for example, the DCC team was all of them guys lived around Queenstown. The Mackenzie played for Mackenzie. Even Everest was all Indians. You're attached to something when you play. Even GCC was Portuguese, you know. So
and Cosmos.
I remember
Chinese.
Cosmos. GSC was the East Coast team basically. GSC that's where all them guys from the East Coast used to play for GSC. Stewart and all them guys.
And Crafty play.
You know, the grants, you know. But my point is, you play it for something. You play it for being, you represented something. Nowadays, the only thing you represent is your pocket. That's all. So that's the difference nowadays. And I'm not knocking these fellows because they've got to make a buck. They gotta survive, and you know, cricket doesn't last forever. And so I really don't knock them, but that's where I think they have to start going back to that grassroots, starting with school cricket and build that pride in players. And I think that would be, that would make a difference.
Basil, you can comment on specifically that, but I want to get from you, because as I said, I saw little children in that crowd, boys and girls, today at Vincent and Oval. And they obviously knew the game. And their emotions as that game came down to the wire were the same emotions of their mothers and fathers. What's going on in Barbados that we don't know about when it comes to young people? Because in Guyana, in a place like Guyana, I see that with women. I see women who show more knowledge and emotions about the game in a place like Guyana than men. But like I said, in Barbados, I was struck today with those young people, and I kept looking at them because those who are natively are frustrated that young people are not into cricket. Tell me.
Well, one of the things the West Indies board came out with that it would be free to go to these 2 games in Barbados following the death of Sir Gary, right? And those youngsters you're talking about, they were right in front of us where we were sitting. All of them in white. They were. I think it's like it's somebody's little cricket team of these little youngsters, right? And as the game came down to the wire, that whole stand where we were, the Greenwich and Haynes stand, that's where most of the people were. Everybody started rallying for the West Indies. When Alzari Joseph, as he was running into bowl, there was a slow clap and he delivered the ball, and there was a lot of, when the ball beat the bat, there was oohs and ahs, and it was nail biting. Everybody were on their feet. A low scoring game that went at one point looked like New Zealand was just gonna coast home, then became a nail biter, and the chances of West Indies winning the game seemed seemed well placed that they could win the game. And so the enthusiasm of the young people and so on and so forth, it's like a whole spirit took over that stand, and the shouting and so on and so forth. Unfortunately, we came up on the short end. So the emotions went from high to low in the matter of 15 minutes or so. When that catch was dropped, there was so much disappointment in the stands and so on, and obviously the players on the field. But as I said to someone, I'm not surprised the West Indies would have done something like that, because one of the flaws of our cricket is the fundamentals, which we are not masters of fundamental cricket. And that was a situation where clearly the guy running towards the ball should have been the one taking the catch, not the guy running backwards. And to see 2 elite cricketers, nobody making a call to say it's mine, because we were there, we would know somebody called. There was no call, right? And that's what we ended up with. There was more than enough time to say, man, that's my catch, mine. And the other guy get out of the way. It's those little routine plays that we do not make anymore routinely is why we are where we are. And, I just want to also comment on something Sir Gary said in that video about the education. He's not educated, and so on.
You repeated it about 4 times. So
well,
it was intentional.
Yes, and I will tell you this. I must have told you this story already. I must have been about 10 or 11 years old. I was sitting on our dining table doing my homework. And my father came to me, and I don't know why he said it to me. He said to me, Skipper, batting is harder than your schoolwork. And I look at him like he mad. And he says, schoolwork, you just got to study the exam. Study the book, read the book, and pass the test. But batting, you gotta be making a lot of decisions over and over. But I didn't really understand because I looking at it like when I go outside and I play with me friends cricket, batting easy, way easier than any school work. It's until later on I understood the decision making. And I was talking about that today to the youngsters because as we were watching the game, I was trying to tell the youngsters different things we were watching in the game, to point out to them. And one of them was decision making. And I said batting, and I used the same story. And I said, batting is you have to, in a split second as a batter, you have to make a decision to come forward, to go back, what shot you're going to play, not to play, etc. in a split second over and over. And how we know the good ones from the not so good ones is the ones that make the better decisions more frequently than the not so good ones. It all comes down to decision making, right? In a split second. And that's a lot harder than any school book. And unfortunately, in this Caribbean society, that type of intelligence is not recognized as intelligence. And I'm going to bring this back to you, Dr. Hines, and you could comment on this. There was a discussion in our chat about the honors, the national honors, because they were talking like in Barbados, Sir Gary was a national hero, seen as a national hero, and he's bestowed certain benefits as a result. Sir Viv has the similar thing in Antigua. And there was a guy who was saying Guyana, and I said, look, Guyana has national awards, and they're all, they got the different categories. And I said, Guyana I think we have one recognized national hero, i.e. Kofi. I don't think we have any other national hero. But having said that, I went and I looked because somebody asked about Clive Lloyd. And I remember Clive Lloyd getting the Cacique Crown of Honor, right? And I remember Lance Gibbs also getting the same honor, right? When he broke the world record for the most wickets, right? And my dad was the first sportsman to get a national award when it started in 1970. He got the Golden Arrow of Achievement, right? But then I went and I looked at the honors above that. And some of the names that I saw that got these honors and why a Clive Lloyd or a Lance Gibbs cannot get those honors. Men who had way more impact than many of those people that got the Order of Roraima and so on. They had more impact across the world as Guyanese than any of those people on that list. And what it reminded me is where they categorize intelligence and impact. Sportsmen are not seen in that light, right? Similarly, you would hear people say some of these former players, they can't be in charge of decision making for West Indies cricket because they don't have letters behind their name, so to speak, right? So when I heard Sir Gary saying that, that reminded me of the conversation we had yesterday on a chat about the national honors and why some sport, a guy like a Clive Lloyd, etc., would not get those high honors. And we look at some of the people, and Dr. Hines, you're involved in the politics there in Guyana. There's a lot of curry flavor when it comes to some of these awards or politics, I should say.
But I want to take it a little bit further before I go to Doc, because if you read C.L.R. James Beyond the Boundary, he's saying that sports and cricket in particular mirror the social stratification in society. Correct. That certain players couldn't go to Spartan, certain players couldn't go to certain clubs, we know Guyana, and so on. So there's a color class. And I think Gary knew it because he lived it. Yes. And I think he still sees it in society. And somebody drew to my attention that Courtney Ambrose, in an interview, I haven't had a chance to look at it yet, that he and Courtney Walsh did.
Oh yes, they were on a podcast that I look at the podcast all the time with 4 former England players: Michael Vaughan, Phil Tufnell, David Lloyd, and Alistair Cook.
Right. I haven't had a chance to look at it yet. I have it.
It's very enlightening. It's very enlightening.
But I understand Courtney said that a couple of months ago he spoke because he feels passionately about giving back to West Indies cricket. He spoke to Shallow, and Shallow never get back to him. No, I mean, if Courtney Ambrose give me his number and say, call me anytime, I call him in the next hour. I mean, so the point I am making is that the very fact that Courtney said call him, forget about whether he asking you to coach or what. He's Courtney Ambrose. He's Courtney Ambrose. You gonna say, well, I ain't call him his sister, man. I'm gonna call you next week. But if Courtney said call me, I call him right away. The thing here, Sobers comes from a place called Bayland in Barbados, a co-pasture area. And if you go, and it's interesting that Sobers said his father died when he was 5 years old, 5 years old. His father was a seaman. He got torpedoed. He died. But when he was alive, he was such a disciplinarian that they never used to get to go out and play cricket. And when he was away in sea, out at sea, they would try to get in as much sport as they can. Viv Richards also said the same thing. That his father was such a disciplinarian that he didn't want he and his brother them to go out and play. And his a neighbor lady, apparently she saw that Viv and she went to the father. No, his aunt. And said, let the boys that play cricket. So the point I'm making here, there's a class dynamic to this because fathers and mothers of that generation and our generation wanted you to become doctors and lawyers and so on.
Yes.
All right. So
yes.
So I think that society has still not come to grips with the idea that you can come from the working class, as Martin Carter said in the nigger yard of yesterday. That the fact that you are a sportsman doesn't mean that you could not have become a lawyer or a doctor, right? Because all of us started at the same place. And so I think sport is still synonymous with entertainment. That's why when I hear people talk about entertaining crowd, I suck my teeth. Because the sportsman, the batsman, the bowler, is a worker like everybody else. He or she has to earn a living, but he or she is using mental, and it's the sports you use mental and physical labor. As Professor Doc know, we use mental labor, right? As a sportsman, mental and physical. But because of the class nature of most sports people, or most singers, the society says that, and I'm so glad that Gary rebuked, because apparently he did this interview fairly recently. And I'm so glad that one of the last things that he has done before he died is to rebuke a society that is still latched on to the old notion of elitism.
Yeah.
Sobers is an elite. You know why? Because an elite means that people who have a disproportionate amount of a particular good. Sobers have more than a disproportionate thing. And so he is elite.
Let me tell you something. Again, the same thing about the whole impact that they think with athletes or sportsmen to people in a country. I remember my father telling me a story. He and Haslam Paris had it out one day, right? And he tell Haslam Paris, this is when he was the CEO of the Backside Company, tell him, you see, when you pass the toll gate, the first toll space, who know you? Who know you? And he was illustrating, he said, I could go anywhere in this country and they know who I am. But when you pass the first gate, nobody don't know who the hell you are. And it's the same with Sobers. Sobers could have walked anywhere on this planet Earth where people know about cricket and they know who he was. But the Prime Minister of Barbados could go to the same place and they wouldn't know who he or she was. Right? But yet still, the way you're talking about there would not get, he would not get the equal treatment, so to speak, in his country because he did not have the letters behind his name.
Right. And Doc, you hear me say many times, I take joy in poking my finger in the face in Guyana. You know why? Because I come from the bottom there. And they would have no time with me if I didn't get, quote unquote, a doctor behind my name. And I know that. That even with the doctor behind my name, it's trying to take the exam past me. Right? And that is right. A lot of people say, well, Dr. Hines is strident and so on. And that's okay. I am strident. But I'm over strident because I know I still live in a society that don't believe that I am equal to them. And so I poke my finger in their eye like Sobers did there in that interview. But I don't want to talk for you, Doctor. Talk for yourself.
Well, he said a lot of things, and I think the most important thing he said, which is, again, which you see in the West Indies. Remember now, and this here again is the changing times. I've got to go back. Unfortunately, I was in both eras. We, even in the West Indies, who used to run West Indies cricket? It used to be ex-players. That's what used to happen in the past. Clyde Walcott was the president. Clyde Walcott was even representing the ICC and in those days. But what happened? It's all about money. It becomes a business. So now when it becomes a business, you got accountants, you've got people with MBAs, because it's all about money. And still I'm making no money because the West Indies think they're broke. But my point is, and I think that's what Sir Gary was talking. And if you take it into, besides the social class, look at even in your profession, Dr. Hines, you won't have, to get anybody to run anything or to do anything, you have to have somebody who has been there with experience. You can, I'm sure the guy who runs your university had to have something in education. When I worked for the U.S. government, the last two secretaries that we had, both of them that ran the Department of Energy were Nobel Prize laureate in physics. So you can't have somebody running a hospital and they know nothing but medicine and that type of stuff. So it's very similar, and I think that's what Gary was getting at, is that, so it becomes a business thing, but with all of the tons of experience, and Basil Fayed was right, in terms of knowing, it's like, that's their PhD. Their PhD is about knowing and understanding, but getting people to appreciate that it's all about money. So I think that's where the big divide is. And look, I remember, I don't know if I should but, and if you think that Gary's the only one, okay. If you think that Gary, I remember Clive Lloyd wanted to be president. He wanted to put up his name. Even the government of Guyana did not support Clive Lloyd to be president. And look at Clive. Clive is now the president of the Lancashire Cricket Club. Yeah. Okay. Now of the board. Now, and I remember when I was in Barbados for the ICC general meeting. I can't remember the year. And we were at a cocktail party. And I'm standing there talking to the president, the CWA president, and Gordon Greenwich passed by, and so he come. I shook his hand with me, the president of the CWA, and somebody, I think Cammy Smith, and he shook my hand. He shook Cammy Smith's hand, and he just continued. So I'm standing there, and I thought that really, he probably met up with the president early in the night. when he left, the president laid into him. You know what the president said? I'm not going to call the president name. You know what the president said? All of them believe because they play the game, they know how to run cricket better than anybody else. That's what he said.
Mm-hmm.
You hear what he said? Because they play the game and they become a star, they believe they know how to run cricket better than anybody else. Yeah. But so that's the you see where the friction is? That's exactly where the friction is. And where that elite group, or the lawyers and the MBAs are saying, oh, all they could do is play the game. They don't know how to they don't have the brains to run quick. That is what Gary was saying. That's exactly what Gary was saying. Even though Gary got a PhD in cricket, I would say Gary has a PhD in cricket.
Yeah, the same thing Sir Randy would tell me. He would say, I ain't got no big education, but when it come to fast bowling, I's an expert on that. And I could talk about that from top to bottom. But those people who have, look, I think what Vincent alluded to this, as cricket became a professional sport, because in the previous times, like when you talk about ex-cricketers running the thing, it wasn't a professional sport at that time.
Right.
But as it became a professional sport and a multi-million and to billion-dollar industry, the so-called technocrats and so on felt that business people had to run our cricket. The cricketers didn't know how to do so. To use the term, they threw the baby out with the bathwater, where the cricketers who have the knowledge, because at the end of the day, despite it becoming a business and so on and so forth, the product is still developing cricketers. And those who have gone through the process have an intimate understanding of what it takes to develop a cricketer. I would say we need to get XYZ environment and so on and processes, etc., to facilitate developing these cricketers, which these business people love cricket, but they don't have that insight and understanding, right? So we in the Caribbean, as a result of that, I would argue the foundation of our cricket as the years went by was not looked at. They think they could just continue just doing the things the same way they could do. And what I mean by foundation, the school cricket as well as the club cricket, right? And we, from a Guyana perspective, know that school cricket is non-existent for the most part in Guyana. And club cricket, I mean, all the clubs are struggling mightily, right? The professionalism that you would need at the club level is nowhere there in any place in the region. So, but these so-called business people have never focused on that. And I think because, you know why? They can't solve the problem. So all they're going to do is a lot of fancy, what was the term, piecemeal things at the West Indies team level to make it seem as we are moving in the right direction while the foundation continues to deteriorate. And for me and many others, it's when we see that foundation, the standard at that foundational level really ascending, we're going to see the difference at the highest level.
Dr. Adams, Gary Sobers' legacy to the Caribbean. And then I'll come back to you for the same thing, the same answer to the same question, Basil.
You have to use your narrative beyond the boundary. It's again, it's that pride of the Caribbean, the pride, not necessarily cricket, because everybody, you cannot come up with enough adjectives to describe Gary as the greatest cricketer. That's understood. But it's the impact that it had on the people's lives in the Caribbean that made, people you know, when the West Indies play and they win, you know, it means a lot. And you know, Basil was closer to us because I'm sure Basil heard all the stories in terms of when they, you know, when they go to England, especially because most of the Caribbean people in the time, because we were British colonies, had migrated to England. So we had, you know, so when they come out, because this is their only opportunity as Black people to come out and say we are on top for today or for these 5 days. You see? So when this, because of what he's done, that's the kind of legacy, is that pride that he's instilled, and the way that he's inspired. You know, I don't look at the Brian Lara. I never heard that story before. That's why I think that this video should be played in all the academies we've got in Caribbean, because Brian Lara gained a lot of points from what I heard tonight, because what it tells me that Brian, you read the man said Brian would call him
in 5 minutes.
But I heard other story about other people just tell them that that's old time thing. They you know, I know about certain of a current player who told you know, I think it's the same Gary Sobers. He told that when Gary
told that to Sir Gary, yes.
But here it is, a player, you know, he listened and he took the advice, and you know, but so I think that is the legacy more than anything else, Dr. Hines, is that pride that he instilled in people beyond the boundary, as you like, you know, your narrative there, which that is that impactfulness that he had on people and throughout the entire Caribbean and beyond the Caribbean, you know, to make West Indies what it is. That powerful team, guys, was still a powerful team under Gary. But when you get a Black man from the Caribbean who has the world record, you know, who has the batting world record, and everybody recognizes him as the greatest, that means a lot to Black folks.
Basil, his legacy.
I would say this: the legacy of Sobers begins with his genius on the cricket field, in every facet on the cricket field, is second to none, which for one instills pride, should instill pride throughout the Caribbean, Black people, etc. Right? But more than that, my first memory of him was in 1968. I was not even 4 years old at the time. And in 1968, when England came to the Caribbean, we went with my younger brother and my mother. We went to every island the West Indies played with my father. So we were around the West Indies team. So that was my first interaction with him. And the thing over all the years that I've been able to interact with him is that he is probably one of the nicest people you would ever meet. And he's so humble. You would not believe this is the guy who was this all-world great man when you're in his company. How he made you feel comfortable, etc. I remember he would always say, the last time my father and him met up was my dad came to Barbados in 2016 with my brother, my youngest brother and sister, because he had some bank accounts from his time as a selector. I know, you know, he's ill to close off these things. And he asked Roland to contact Gary because he said he wanted to see Gary. And so while they were talking, I think my name came up on Gary's turn. He said, yes, he's such a nice boy. He always would say that about me. He's such a nice boy because the year prior, that was the last time I saw him. He was in New York. And that was the time, if Vincent, you remember, that was when you went to Dubai. The Garden Greenwich was there. All of them were there. The time was matched. And we were sitting talk, and I called up my dad because I told Sir Gary, you know, what he was going on with him at the time with this. And I called him up and I gave him the phone, and the two of them spoke for about 10 minutes or so. And then he gave me back the phone and he said, he sounds really good. He sounds real all right. Yeah, you know. And again, you know, how humble he always was. And the one thing my father always would say about him, he is the nicest person he's ever met, he's ever been around. And to me, that is more than any achievement he ever did on the cricket field, is how he interacted with other human beings. And there is not a single person I could think of would have a bad word to say about Sir Garfield Sobers. Everybody had a consensus was how nice a man he was. And to me, that is more than all the cricket stuff. Because people would remember that, how those who interacted with him would remember that probably more so than his exploits on the cricket field.
So
But you know, it's interesting that he mentioned that he used to room with Cammy Smith. Cammy Smith also, I spent some time with him when I was in Barbados. Is one of the nicest human beings that I have ever met. So it's interesting that, you know, you have both of them rooming together. I don't know if it was by design or what, but it's interesting because Cammy Smith was one that, oh gosh, you know, just an unbelievable guy to be around.
And the other thing I would say to Dr. Hines about Sir Garfield, he had a dry sense of humor.
Yeah,
right? He had a dry sense of humor, right? All of that would make you feel warm around him. I mean, you know, it's interesting. Something I asked him when I saw him the last time I saw him in New York, because my father once said to me that Gupti was the best leg spinner he played against and he's ever seen. He felt Gupti was better than Shane Warne. Now that's blasphemy in many quarters. And then I saw an article where Sir Gary was saying the same thing. So when I saw him in person, I said, Sir Gary, I saw where you said Gupti was better than Shane Warne, and he didn't hesitate. He said, yes. Gupti in my books was a better leg spinner than Shane Warne. And to hear that from Sir Gary, that could see the ball spinning, the seam, where the seam was spinning, and so on, and could stand at the non-striker's end and pick Chandrasekhar's googly for West Hall.
But you know, Basil, I was glad because Basil and I are in some cricket chats and hear some, you know, get without stuff you hear. But I was glad again. We always argue about the older generation of cricketers versus the new generation.
The newer.
I was glad that Gary brought up Ray Lindwall and Keith Miller. Those are two names, and you cannot bring up those names even to people, you know, the younger people.
They won't even know what who or what that is.
That's right. When we talk about fast bowlers, you bring up them names like, oh, they would just laugh, you know, laugh at you. But I was glad that, yeah, even, you know, Gary, those were two great Statham and Truman, Lindwall.
That's right.
You know.
I
We had Hall and Griffith.
Yeah.
And then he would, and the thing about it, one of the things, Dr. Hines and Vincent, one of the problems of today's society, we have a tendency to think things in the past were not as good as today.
Exactly.
We want to shove them and throw them away.
Yeah.
And oftentimes those things in the past are way better than what we have today. Yeah. Right? And rather than throwing them out, we should continue with them and just to refine and evolve them rather than throw them away. Oh, it's in the past. And the same things when you talk of people from the past eras. Oh, they're not as good as these guys today, and so on and so forth. But those same guys would have been watching the cricket match today and saw some of the things West Indies did and would tell you, could give you chapter and verse of how they could have done it better. but we would naysay them. You know, and I would want to say this with that loss today. One of the things as we were watching New Zealand field while we were batting, and you watching New Zealanders on the field, and then you watch us on the field. We don't look like a professional unit on the field. The New Zealand, how they were diving around and throwing around and saving runs and so on and so forth. They look like an international elite team. And we didn't look like that on the field. And it ended up costing us because we are not that.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
But again, it comes back to, you know, it always comes back to how it's not what you do in the field, it's how you get to what you do in the field.
Correct.
Leadership. How do you run cricket in the West Indies? When you have basics like that catch, the one first thing that I remember coming up as a little boy in Mackenzie and Basil Father, every afternoon as part of the routine, you would hit the ball up in the air, and you got it, and you better shout and say, "Leave! It's mine! It's mine!" That was something that it was important. You have to shout and say, "It's mine," and you got to shout. You used to make sure you yell hard, so then I know.
Yep.
The other thing that I noticed, the over to the number 11 batsman. Here it is that this guy, the only instruction that this guy got was the blot.
Correct.
I would have crowed him. I would have put some in short forward, short leg, city middle, and because then you start playing with the because you know what to do now.
Yeah.
If you want a belt to swipe, okay, good. If you're gonna beat me, so beat. But then that's when you can make mistake because you know because you know orthodox batsman, you can play forward, hit inside, or you can play back the ball. You got a crowd, they put pressure on him. They really, I see they got people out. Stop. I said, okay, you got that was the first thing.
They were playing what they were doing. They were playing to give Satner the single and then go at the guy.
I was talking about when the number 11 was facing.
No, I know. But what I'm saying, they were playing to give Satner the single, right? And so Satner go down, and then they could have this guy at the number 11 guy. But Satner wasn't playing the game. Satner knew what was the deal.
But we had a full over this guy. You remember our left arm Lars?
Yes. He had a hold over. He had a hold over. I agree.
I would have thrown him.
I agree. I think you could have been more attacking. That's think right. even when they only attacked him with Alzari's last over and they brought in the forward short leg. At that point, you know, I really don't think Shai Hope is tactically a really good captain. The game often slips away from him. He's not proactive as he could be, and that's one of the knocks to me on his captaincy. You know the character you're dealing with in Satner, and I knew Satner was gonna win this game for them because he has been in this position many times before, and you could see how he was batting. I remember some of the youngsters saying to me, "Coach, the man, look how he's so calm. Look how he's so calm." I said, "Yeah, he's been there, done that. This is situation is flustering him." Right, and that's the value of experience. Yeah, that's the value of experience. That when you've been in a situation, you know the resources you could fall back on, how you're gonna work your way out of this situation, and he did. And I knew when that over was when they brought in the field, I know he's gonna hit one up in the air and go for it and win the game. I knew that's a shot he was gonna play, and that's smart cricket. Right.
But you know the other thing, I can't leave here because I'm Basil because you know that what I've said about it. How the hell could you go and drop Django in that last game?
Well,
Django is the most stable, is the one person that you have to keep in that team to stabilize the batting. You're going to drop in a game. And then I'm not saying we would have won the game. But we thought, if we had made another 40 runs or so in the previous game, we probably would have been. We probably could have won the game like what happened today. But my point is, how Django has to play. He's the one person to stabilize that fragile batting. Has to play. And today, you see, they bring him back. And what I like about the guy is mentally tough. He comes back there and he said, "Hey, you know what? I'm gonna put out here." He come back and he make runs. But I think that was the most stupid thing that we did when we dropped in the last. I'm not saying.
I think, I mean, that was a topic of discussion, because if you know the Bajan cricket fans, and they had some Bajan cricket fans, you know, and that was a discussion about Django not playing the last game in Guyana. There was some.
I'm not to you. He's the best player spin bowling of the team.
And the other thing I would add to it with Django as he was batting, I pointed out to the youngsters, I said, because remember Moti came in and went past his score.
Yeah.
Right? And I said to the youngsters, you see what Django has figured out, what his role is? His role is to bat through to the 50 overs. And everybody else bat around him, and so on. Right? But there was some hilarious stuff. You know, the fans going at Mr. Rutherford because of his excess weight. So Bajan guys was going at him. You know, the guy.
So what is Samuel Hetty then, Basil?
No, well, Hetty slimmed down, but it seems as though Rutherford and Hetty racing to see who got the more fat. Because I saw, well, this is the first time I've seen Mr. Hetmeyer in person in 10 years, right? And because, you know, where we were sitting was not far from the dugout, and I saw him several times going on to the field and so on and so forth, you know.
They dropped him today.
Yeah. I mean, Django came in for him.
Yes.
Django came in for him. The question, you see, Dr. Heights, one of the problems with this situation is this: Sammy is not being held accountable.
Yeah.
The media is not in the ability to ask Mr. Sammy, why are you making such moves, etc., etc. Give us a rationale as to why you're doing X, Y, Z, right? You would ask the question, why is Matthew Ford play today? Shamar Joseph, in my view, should have been in the team.
I saw him on the field today. I thought Shamar was carrying some niggle. But I saw him on the field today.
No, Shamar was on the field fielding as a substitute.
Yes,
right? He was right in front of us. So he can't be carrying a niggle and being a substitute fielder.
He was on the field.
So,
no, I'm gonna tell y'all flat out. Every time I see Matthew Ford in a West Indies uniform, I suck my teeth.
Because he's ordinary.
I cannot stand it. I cannot stand it.
No, Basil, how come? Basil, why are they having him around? You know,
because he's Sammy boy.
Because you tell me you got a guy like Alzari Jones, and today, boy, Alzari bent his back.
Yeah.
He bent his back.
Yep.
Until he finally got the edge in the one wicket. But despite that, he was bowling so good that he wasn't giving away runs. And he bent his back. Why Alzari never get the new ball? What's the rationale? Because to me, Ford is only effective with the new ball because he gets the ball to swing. Outside of that, his effectiveness is not the same. And the New Zealand batsman was coming down the track and hitting him. As I use the term, I tell a Bajan guy, I said, Ford is a good soldier. He bowls a military medium.
Yeah, he goes quick off breaks.
Yeah.
And I'm glad we
I mean,
got on this.
Dr. Hines, I just want to say this before we come. Those are the questions that Mr. Sammy is not being held to account. Why is Ford playing and Shamar Joseph on the bench? Why Django is playing and Hetmeyer comes in for Django is because they're playing in Guyana?
But that is the only rationale. Why you bring in Hetmeyer in Guyana, and then Hetmeyer make 20-something runs, like must be the second highest score, but then you drop him and bring in Django now. Is it a cricketing decision? No.
What's going on? Yeah. I mean, Hetmeyer right now seems, I call him, he got cameosis. Because all he doing now when he come in, he playing a cameo and he back to the pavilion. I mean,
his name is Koka, it's got Koka and Hetty.
Yeah,
that's how he does.
Yeah, because
you look at that interview, you'll look at that interview. Gary's talked about him. He says he's a good guy, but somebody needs to talk to him, and Gary spotted that.
Yeah,
so, yeah. In that interview, we didn't get to that part.
Right.
But Dr. Hines, how many years we've been hearing this?
Yeah.
I've been hearing this for it looks like 10 years that somebody needs to talk to you.
Apparently nobody can speak with him. That's the moral of the story.
And that's exactly my point.
Apparently that's the moral of the story.
Except for his better half, I guess, you know.
But the point here, Sammy is making some selection decisions that bothers everyone.
Correct.
And that, the media seem not to be able to ask him these questions and to explain these decisions that he's making. I thought Shamar was carrying a niggle until I saw Shamar on the field yesterday. This is the fourth match, and Seals is getting his first bowl in the fourth match. What's going on here?
It doesn't make any sense. But
it does not make sense.
He's not being held accountable. He's king. They give him king of the hill. He's a one man. He does everything. Well, if you're going to do that, hold him accountable. You know, hold him accountable. But there's no accountability whatsoever. He goes along his merry ways. If he wins the next game, all of this is going to be what you're going to hear all kinds of accolades. Oh, we did so well, and Sammy's
but you know the interesting thing about it is that they would have, and this is the part is a frustrating part for me. If we had won this series against New Zealand, they would have said, you see, he improving the team. But now this is where I critique people. I critique. And people think, oh, I just criticize some. No, I criticize certain things. Why is it we can't bat first and win an ODI match?
That's right. That's right.
So you're telling me that for me shows where we are not improving. Don't come and tell me, for example, because the narrative now from the test perspective, oh, we've had these X number of centuries have been scored on the Sammy stewardship. And I retorted back, how many matches have we won?
Absolutely.
Because at the end of the game, you guys could cherry pick any kind of stats to suit your narrative. But at the end of the game, it's about winning and losing matches, right? So if we're scoring all of these runs and we're still losing, what are you telling me, right? So I don't want to hear about these cherry picking statistical analytics you trying to push at us to fit your narrative that, oh, this guy's improving the team. I mean, and this New Zealand team, by all accounts, is not New Zealand's strongest ODI team.
No, it is not. It is not the strongest team.
They're actually breeding some newer guys. They've had the opportunity to. And the part about this, I would also say, which is very interesting, this is where you talk about the professionalism and etc. New Zealand goes into Guyana in these conditions that are alien to them. And they got caught in the first game because some of the selections they made, etc. They made the adjustments to the conditions and selected a team accordingly, and then spanked us spanked us in those conditions. We didn't make no adjustments.
Yeah.
We just continue along our merry way. We come into today on a better track in Barbados and can't score 200 runs.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, New Zealand had some hiccups and made it an interesting match that we could have possibly snatched victory from the jaws of defeat.
New Zealand was handing that thing on a platter. They were handing it out.
Yes.
Basil Jr. and Dr. Vincent Adams. Earlier, Basil coming back just now. Earlier, Basil talked about Gupti, Sabaj Gupti, Indian leg spinner, 1950s and 60s, who ended up living in Trinidad. After he finished playing, it was a handful of a leg spinner, all the old timers. I heard Rohan Kanai talked about him, and Rohan was a master of bowling, and he, like Gary, had great respect for Gupti. So just for you out there who are thinking about these names, Sabaj Gupti. Yeah, go ahead, brothers.
What I wanted to say in terms of Gupti, because in everybody like just look at stats and look at stats to determine how good a player was, but they also got to look at context. And one of the things those who know about Gupti was overbowled because he was the trump card on the India team. And if you go and look at the stats and see the amount of overs that he was bowling when he played for India, you know, it's not a wonder the stats are not as gaudy as they could have been had he had better support and so on and so forth. But the people that played against him would talk about the skill and the mystery that, you know, because when a guy like Sobor says something like that, this is a guy that could pick. And he got the problem with Mr. Gupti, tells you the kind of guile and mystery that Gupti possessed.
But the other thing, quickly, Basil, he said something there tonight to show the genius, because I've always said, and I've never known Gary to be a sweeper, so I don't know coming up with a sweeping thing. But I knew Lara, when I saw Lara against that same Sri Lanka team that he's talking about, Lara was sweeping every single delivery from Murilatron. And I said, how the heck? Because we grew up, Basil Fire, you couldn't play a sweep shot under him because he said the one thing he used to tell us, when you sweep, you're playing with a thin slice in the butt. Hit straight. And when you sweep, you can't control it because the ball could bounce hit the top edge. And when I saw Brian sweeping and this man, Googly or whatever, I said that is when I said he is a genius, because I know a sweep shot, you gotta control it. You got, you know, it's not an easy thing to do. So I think that was a pretty telling that he was the one who actually told Brian to play that sweep shot. It doesn't matter whether it's Googly or whatever it is.
Because Lara would tell you. Probably in the first test into the second test or so of that series, he wasn't picking Molatorin. So he used a sweep shot because he couldn't pick him. But when he started picking him, he started stepping out. That's when you know you're picking a man when you can step out, right?
Oh, absolutely.
That's when
Basil, I used to love them, especially Cornelius on them. And you just let them know you're picking them, because as soon as they drop the googly, you chip and you're on drive. And as soon as you do that, they get confused because that's a danger delivery. So now they become normal, they know what to do now, you know. So you use to let them know you're picking them.
And if you notice something today against Laws, the guy that made it Chapman was obviously picking him because Chapman was coming down the track to him. He was coming down. I mean, that was something I wanted to see today, was Laws, because now he would have. I give him credit for what he did in Guyana, but those conditions were so conducive to spin. Right now, to see him on a better track, and the New Zealanders would have seen him 3 times. How he would have fared today. And I was not surprised that the New Zealand pretty much handled him.
But you couldn't expect him with 186 on the board.
No.
Right.
No, but what
if we had made, I wanted to see how we would fare on outside of Guyana. If we had made another 50, 60 runs, I think the captain could have trusted him more, and we would have seen how good he is at this age. Unfortunately, he didn't. They couldn't.
Yeah, because one of the things I saw today was he wasn't that consistent with his lengths at all today. He was either too full or too short. You know, he never really. The only person he troubled was the number 11 batsman.
Right.
He didn't trouble any of the top batters at all today. You know, they were driving him and getting one easy, rotating the strike, and at times chip down, hit him, pull him. So, well, I don't feel no way about that because look, the guy is 19 years old. He knows that in his career. These are things. This is the experience because, as we all know, you get up to the top. When you get up to the top, people are gonna see you. If you don't make adjustments, if you don't continue to improve, you'll have a very short career, right? And that's the task is sticking at that level, right?
You remember when Warren first came to the Caribbean in 1995, Carl and Lara Manassi.
Oh yeah.
He went on after then to become a genius for the ball. So again, it depends on whether you come up against people who could play spin bowling. I think you said it on this program. Fast bowling is instinct. You know. To use boycott term, the ticker. You gotta have the ticker. We in Guyana would say you gotta have guts. You gotta get
fast bowling, right? But when you play spin, it takes more skill. You want to be able to use the whole crease, both laterally and vertically, and then out front of the crease, right? When you got all them tools in your box, then you know you play spin. You can put the spinners under pressure. You know.
Yeah. They used to call. They have a club. There are two clubs in Buxton: Brian Lara Club and Carl Hooper Club. Two sharp opposite one another.
Yeah, I remember you used to see the Carl Hooper Club when they going down these schools. Driving down these schools road, you pass in Buxton.
Carl Hooper Club used to be more packed because if you drink over by Brian Lara, you can't come. By Carl. But the big men them in the village used to call Carl Hooper. You see him there, your ballet dancer. And then Frank Worrell was the ballet dancer of his generation. I never seen but
I just seen clips of him. I heard he was very, very stylish, and he played a late cut so late he used to cut it out of the wicketkeeper glove.
Take that all out your hand, you know. Doc was asking me, about remembering scores and so on, because in the village they had rules of cricket. I couldn't make the village team till I turned a big man, 28 or 29 years. I had one good season. I don't know if I would have get a good season because I migrated after that. So but you couldn't make the team. You became the statistician. The person who come to you with records. So you know how to go and read about the game and so forth. And I think what we were saying earlier is that these chaps who are now playing the game, they're not students of the game.
That's true.
You know what Gary said? I study it. Even as I'm playing, I am studying the game.
Yeah. That's true.
These youngsters are not students of the game.
Look. We got these youngsters here in Barbados. It's two teams we got here. And we did a bunch of Zoom calls before we came to Barbados. We do them every Friday. And one of them, I said, look, guys, one of the things of your generation, y'all don't talk cricket. As soon as the match is done, you pack your stuff and y'all gone home. All the generations of the past, cricket, discussing the game was an essential part of your development. That's where you learned the most about the game, in discussing the game, right? And from those discussions, you went and implemented things you learned when you went onto the field to play. So I said to them, next week when we meet, the first test with Sri Lanka was about to play that Thursday. And I said, we're going to discuss the first 2 days because it's Thursday and Friday. But then I catch myself and I had to say, gentlemen, how many of y'all watch West Indies play cricket? Not a single one put up their hand. Now, amongst this group, because like the team I am coaching, we only have 3 guys from the US and all the rest from Guyana. So we got a lot of guys based in the region in the team. And Frey's got a couple of them in his team too. So we got probably at least 11 or so guys from Guyana. Not one of them watch West Indies cricket.
What?
So what is ironic is that these same youngsters don't look at West Indies play, but that's the team that they're aspiring to play for.
Yeah.
And that is the great disconnect of our cricket today. When our young people don't even watch the West Indies team play cricket.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, it was so important, again, in my era, what Basil is saying, you see when we play Case Cup, or even when I never played Nardcote and White Cup, but even them games, it was a tradition. After at the close of play in the afternoon, they come over they come over to the visiting team, the host team. They come over and they buy drinks and you sit down. But it wasn't about the drink, because when you're a little boy, you can't drink alcohol with them big men. You got to drink your soda. But the most important thing was to sit down and listen to them. And I remember, some things that stick. I remember as a little boy, Stephen Kamash, we played GCC and we talking and with Basil and everybody. And Stephen said, we get in the conversation about Ram. How Ram just confused everybody, swing and them time. In them days, they high test,
Right.
I never forget Stephen said, oh, Ram is easy. When he bowling in swing, he hand just go over here. And when he bowling out swing, it just go a little wider. And the next year, I opened batting for Mackenzie. And come up, my first game was against Everest. And he was playing for Everest at the time. And I never forget Ram come up, and I looking at Ram, exactly the same thing. He come here, is he goes a little bit wide, is the outer. And Ram was so easy. I was cover driving when he was confusing everybody else. I was, when he bowled outside, outswing, I smacking the bowling swing, I hand drive. But it was just because
those cues, yeah.
I never forget. Yeah. Look, another story. And Basil know this story. Rex Collymore, they had this by Hiles. We didn't hear about this time. In Dobson Cup. If you hear every week, Dobson, this by getting 6, 7, 8 wickets. So we said this by is a mystery spinner. So they're picky the entire Bobby's team, because that year they decided we're going to beat we'll beat them every year. They bring Ferro, Kalicharan, all of them. The entire Bobby's team had already played for Guyana, except for this wonder by. By the morning when we can start this game, me, Collymore, and St. John go down by the market for buying fruits. And here is this by Ramirez introduced me to this by. Collymore called me aside. Kali said, little one, all of them mystery spinner EB. He too short for being, he got to be going high. You know what? Don't let it land. Don't let it land. Never forget that. Boy, and I see off Ramirez and Cameron. And as soon as this time the crowd calling for, and as soon as the boy meet the queen, before he could even raise his hand, I did halfway down the pitch. You can't confusion. I'm knocking you out of it. I put 100 in them just by doing that. You know, but they're just showing you. Collymore just looked at him and said, little one, he too sharp. He got to be going high and he fooling people with the flight in the air. Don't let it land. Don't let it land. But those are the kinds of things you get from Cali never see ball, you know. But
Right.
Cali said, in order for him to be getting them kind of wickets, he beating them with flight because he's too sharp.
Yeah, I mean, I remember Bachan saying to the old boy, because before they went off the Indian 74, 75, he told them about Chandrasekhar, gave them some tips about Chandrasekhar. Yeah. Kavit played against him in 66, 67. And Bachan was talking one time with me and the old man, and Bachan went to lunch in Queens. And he said to the old man, that stuff you told me about was very, very helpful.
Yeah,
Chandrasekhar. So it's again, that's where the discussion of the game, where you learn the game that, like the cues that Kamash gave you. So when you went to there, you know what to look for when Rangawe is bowling, which puts you ahead of the game in compared to other people.
Basil, remember this?
I can't see this.
You can't see from so far. That's the first time I met you.
At Tivoli, with Benji holding court.
Benji and
Carl. Benji called me Benji called was yesterday, boy. Benji, so you know when Benji called you, you better got a couple hours.
Benji in the audience, you know. But this was because Basil, you left, go and come back.
Yeah, because it happened. That was the year my father was running for the Guyana board presidency. And I promised to go with him to Perico. But when the job started, I said, why did I make that promise? I didn't want to left. A guy had to drop me down by the car park, and I went over there with him and come back. Right? But that was a really good job, man. That was a really good job.
Benji, man. I bet you can't beat Benji. Benji got your own memory, you know, Benji.
What was interesting, they weren't just talking about Test cricket and Chelsea, you know, Case Cup. Because
well, here, this is why when Benji come with this Case Cup talk these days, I said, here's why I stopped it right away. I said, Benji, unless you got the scorebooks, we ain't getting into that discussion. I'm not getting into this discussion. I'm leaving this alone. Unless you have the scorebooks, that is we are going to show the stats you reading out all the time. And I say, I ain't getting into no discussion. I'm leaving it alone.
Oh yes, that was the picture that was carried in the newspaper the next day, because apparently some reporters were there, and the boys from the Kalupa club in Boxer, they cut it out and bring it in and give me say, "Why? What you want to tell me? You going down for see Carl? So Carl."
That was when Kalupa came out of retirement.
Yes, 2001.
2001, yes.
2001, I think it was John Phillips who was a cricketer in our village there. He out in Canada now. He became an actor, and it's John Sabai Carl playing at trials at Tivoli. Let me go down. And that's how I end up there. Because as a small boy, I walked behind Kalupa in 1985 when he made all the runs in the youth competition. Yes, it was 1985, yeah. Yes, 85.
85.
That's the first time I saw Kenneth Benjamin, who take a whole wicket on that tournament. So you walk from ground to ground behind this guy because they said this guy is a genius. Once of the wicket Carl take and once of the runs he made in that tournament, he's still man.
I remember my father told me, Collymore come to him and said, Butch, I got a little boy I want you to see. He said, all right, and he bring Cooper. But Cooper apparently was chubby at that time. He had a little chubby. So the old boy said to Kali, I'm not a little fat boy you bring here to show me, man. Here, Kali, Butch, Don't judge a book by the cover. Don't judge a book by the cover. After the Obai said, after who played 2 shots, he said, yes, Colin, yes.
Rex Collymore, one of Guyana's better spinners.
That's a man my father said was one of the few people he would trust without seeing him tell him about a young player. He would trust his judgment without seeing the player, Collymore.
All right, we have one more match to play in this series. It's
I'll be there again in person.
And then on Friday or Saturday, the first test match against Pakistan.
What a very quick turnaround. And I saw a score today, Dr. Hines, that Pakistan had 408 for 2.
So against the select team.
The select team.
Where they play? Where?
In Trinidad.
Holy cow, yeah.
Yeah, Warwick is in that team.
Yeah, he's the captain. You got Niall Smith.
Yes.
The guy OJ
Shields.
But let me see what the scores. I'm gonna tell you, you're pulling it up now as we talk. Because somebody at the ground, one of them youngsters told me that oh Lord, 455 for 4. 2 guys made hundreds, 2 guys made 50s, and a couple others. One is not out on 40 something. That don't go well. Apparently, somebody is saying, Dr. Hines, that Mrs. Smith will be in the test team.
Oh, well.
Where is the test? Where is it? How many tests? How many tests?
2 tests. But Dr. Hines,
yeah,
I'm looking at the scoreboard, and like Mrs. Smith got injured because he only bowled 2 overs.
Oh, Jesus.
Lord of mercy, I hope that's not so.
Oh, God.
Where they play the test match in Trinidad?
Yeah, both of them in Trinidad.
Is the fitness with him? I don't know.
Exactly.
He and chemo always breaking down. I don't.
Yes.
I don't. There calls for laws to at least be in the squad, the test squad. What do y'all think?
Yeah, I think he should. Even if I think he should. Even if it's to be in the squad. I don't think I would play him in, especially against a team such as Pakistan. But in Trinidad, there's a spinner. Warwick will play. I mean Moti. I mean Moti. And you got your.
I think they can play Moti or Warwick because with Chase, the 2 spinners are depending on Trinidad.
Is Chase gonna be fit for this weekend? I understand. Rubbing on his finger. Problem?
Yeah, something with his finger. So we're gonna see.
But I'm not sure. I know a lot of people won't agree with me. I am not sure if I would play this last kid in this 4 sets. You got to be careful. This year's kid. This is not a you bowl a little 10 overs and this year's test.
That's true. That's true.
Get him when you got and he was tested today. To be honest, if I was gonna put him on test, it was today. That you can't test him. You can't judge him by that Guyana wicket. Even if I don't bowl in Guyana, I might give people words. But
it'll be interesting to see what you got to play the top 3 fast bowlers.
Yes, yes.
The two Josephs Fields.
If you're gonna slip in a spinner there, then Mr. Roach can play. All right. Yeah. And so since it's 1 spinner, knowing the West Indies mindset, knowing Sammy's mindset, I don't see them playing Laws in front of Warwickon. Right?
Yeah.
I don't think highly of Warwickon, but he's the vice captain. He's the first vice captain who don't play in the team that I know of. And I can't understand the craziness that you pick a man as vice captain, you go on the field, and the captain, something gone wrong with you, you got to go and pee or dirty, and you got to get another vice captain from the. I don't understand.
You had to have Campbell had to stand in as the captain.
As a captain, I don't understand.
It doesn't make, but I cannot see them not playing Moti.
Right.
I cannot see them.
Moti gotta get in the squad first.
He gotta play.
I don't think they're going to go with more than one spinner, especially if Chase is fit, because Chase is now is now seen as a spinner, more a bowler than a batsman. So it would be a second spinner. So I don't see them playing 2 plus 3s.
Is Greaves going to be fit?
Yeah, Greaves played today.
Greaves played today. He was involved in the collision. He was involved.
Right, it was Greaves.
He was involved in the collision.
So you got the 3 quicks with Greaves and a spinner.
And a spinner, yeah. I don't see unless they pull in Moti in front of Warrican, which I don't think they will do, since by
I think they will. I would think
their point system.
Especially now, since Warrican is playing in this game, and like he is not effective in this Pakistan game.
I always thought Moti is the better bowler than Warrican. Warrican catch some good wickets in Pakistan. And he did what some of the other spinners were afraid to do. He started to flight the ball more and so on, rather than bowling quickly, which I think Moti overdoes sometimes. But I would like to see Moti. I love the Australians. You can make 100 today on a fast wicket, and if they're going to play on a spinner's wicket the next time, they pull in a batsman who is good against spin. We don't have that kind of thing. A man make runs, he's not good against spin. You go in a spin wicket and you pay him. We don't always
horses for courses.
Yeah, we don't play our best 11.
That's why this is one of my pet peeves with Sammy's approach, where he talks about we look at the data and see what the best teams in the world are doing. I have a problem with that, because data don't play the cricket.
No.
Right? You have to be able to match up against the team on the given day.
Yes.
So for me, it's about developing the skill sets, the skills of your players, that they would have the versatility, etc., to play various tactics, etc., variant conditions, etc., based on the opponent. Not we gotta raise up run rates in the middle overs. No, that to me, nobody builds teams like that. We all live in the United States. You remember Billy Bean with the Oakland A's when the whole analytics? But Oakland A's only was at best a playoff team. They were never a championship caliber team, because he thought he could just use analytics to assess players, right? And he could play with something, as we all know about the eye test. That wasn't his thing, right? So I would ask Mr. Sammy, please present to me where analytics was used exclusively as you are using it to pick players, and it has been successful.
Yeah,
and I will give you my definition of what I mean by successful.
Yeah. You look at King. King plays Test cricket and 2020. So he's good for Test cricket, but he's not good for 50 overs. So they brought him in as replacement, right? You got to.
Yeah, I was surprised that Auguste still played, and King didn't play today.
That's my thing. My thing is that Auguste is Sammy Bai. They come from the same place, and Sammy, of course, don't make a secret of players that he favor. Rutherford is Ibai. Rutherford is untouchable, although Rutherford get exposed now. He came on. He at one time he was averaging about 60, 70 something in one day.
That's true.
And now they start him out. they sort Rutherford out. He can't
Yeah.
play spin bowling at all. He cannot play spin bowling at all. I like him.
And how would you get better? How would you get better playing spin bowling? Rutherford don't play enough long format cricket.
Guyana and play 4-day cricket. Rutherford,
Yeah.
I don't understand people like E and Shepherd, and now like they're done with Shepherd with ODIs, and
It
they're
looks
gonna
so.
done with it, right, and they're going done with it just now in 2020 as youngsters come up.
T20.
T20, and these chaps are home and don't play cricket while they're home.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand it.
I mean, this guy was over here playing for Wanderers, Imlach, and I think he going back. I was told he was going back to Guyana tomorrow, because when Sargari passed on that was Thursday, right? Thursday or Friday, when he passed. Yeah, it was it was Friday morning. Because we were getting ready to start our match, and we got the news that he had passed earlier that morning. And as soon as I heard the news, I turned to our guys and I said, "Look, we gotta do a minute of silence before we play." And then the liaison came over to me, and one of the umpires said, "We're gonna do a minute of silence out on the pitch." And I said, "Wow, cool," because I had already told my guys that that's something we were gonna do, and so what they end up doing, they made Friday a day of mourning, and then the BCA canceled or rescheduled all the cricket that was playing on Saturday, which was supposed to be the closing off of the 3-day matches. Saturday was supposed to be the last day, right? Now, they're supposed to go into break for the crop over. So here we may have a situation in Barbados where the last day of a match would not be played for several weeks.
For several weeks, yes. Yeah.
Right, and so a guy was raising that issue. You know, to me, Mayor, everybody got the way they want to do things, but I think the best way to pay respect to Sargari, all these young cricketers around Barbados, was before the match, everybody do a minute of silence before the game started. I don't think Sargari would have wanted the cricket to stop. The person I know of, he wouldn't want the cricket to stop.
Yeah.
You know, in his name like that. But you know, the authorities they saw the wisdom in doing so. But I thought that that would have been a better thing. So, but Imlach last week made 100 playing for Wanderers.
Good for him. Good for him.
Yeah, you know.
But anyway, guys, I gotta go.
Well, we overspent our time.
Yes, I guess. Well, it was apropos because it was for the great man.
For the great guys. Gonna see you guys next week.
All right.
And by which time we would have seen the end of this series and the beginning of the test series.
Test series. Yes, sir. All right. Take care.
Garfield St. Albans Sobers, the greatest of them all. We in the Caribbean have had the pleasure, the opportunity to give to the world gifts, whether it's in music, in academics, in sports, in politics. We have given the world gifts. Perhaps the greatest gift that we have given the world is Gary Sobers. We are all Sobers. There is a piece of him in all of us.
Rude boys gonna get you by degrees. Here comes the West Indies. And when you're facing the generals, nearly every ball is a funeral. And And when we battle, brother, go and put your men on the boundary line. And if you give we a liquor, that is merely a hiccup. Look, you win the little battle, you lose the war. It's the same result every time. Everybody sing. Here come the West Indies. Here come the West Indies. Them rude boys gonna get you by degrees. Here come the West Indies. I'll tell you now. Here come the West Indies. Here come the West